checks in.
Hey, JD, what you up to, sugar? Long time no talk to.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
Draymond, they left Steph in the corner. That's a mistake. Curry for three. And he gives him the night.
All right, night for Steph and Curry, and you thought, wow, up 10 with 1:01 to go, and the Warriors were in great shape, going to win the game comfortably. They did win the game, thankfully, 121 to 119 in Brooklyn, a game where the Warriors were completely flat and looked like they'd been partying for the last 2 days in Manhattan and celebrating Draymond Green's birthday and feeling great about themselves for winning 3 of the first 4 in this trip and coming in 9-1 with Jimmy Butler in the lineup. And the Warriors had about as ugly a first quarter plus a little bit of the second quarter as we've seen them have in quite some time. Really, I think you have to go all the way back to the first Jimmy Butler game where the Warriors played a pretty good first quarter and then had an awful second quarter and first couple of minutes of the third quarter. They got down 24 in Chicago. And remember, that was a point where the Warriors were kind of close to bottoming out. Jimmy Butler was there, but the Bulls game was one that it felt like they really needed to win. They ended up completely flipping that game from 24 down into a blowout victory with a massive third quarter. And that really started the tear that Stephen Curry has been on in the games that Jimmy Butler has been a member of the Golden State Warriors. And Steph tonight goes for 40, and the Warriors from 22 down, they have that 10-point lead with 1:01 to go, and they hang on to get the win in Brooklyn, 121 to 119. So we welcome you in. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. That is the number to give us a call or shoot us a text here. We've got Kyle Haar in our San Francisco studios. Appreciate everybody as always. Yes, Kyle saying hi to the people. Appreciate those watching on YouTube and Twitch as a lot of the regulars file in here as we get this show tipped off. All in all, great road trip for the Warriors. 4-1 is 4-1. Again, we are long beyond the time where we rate wins, especially given where the Warriors were here in the time before the Jimmy Butler trade. And I was on with Copes and Derek Papa during their show before the Warrior game got tipped off, and Copes called it. I got to give him a shout out. I mean, he asked me point blank. He says, you think the Warriors will have a little bit of the New York been out partying, celebrating Draymond Green's birthday flu in Brooklyn? And I kind of downplayed it. I thought, hey, maybe they did something on Tuesday and then you have a recovery day Wednesday. And then by this afternoon, you figure it out. Or even if you don't, you just show up and play. But the Warriors just looked about as bad as they have. Really, maybe at any point this year, Jimmy Butler or no, in the first quarter, they get hit with a Brandon Podziemski injury. So we'll keep everybody updated on that as well. Podziemski leaving the game in the first minute of the game with a lower back issue, lower back soreness. He immediately called for the bench and headed to the locker room. Warriors are missing layups early. I mean, they did nothing right. Turnovers. They were down 5-0 less than 2 minutes in. They couldn't hit a shot. They were down 8-0. They were down 21-5. They were down 27-5 after a 17-0 Nets run. And it was a gutless start for the Warriors. Gutless. And I think first time we've uttered that in a long time. I mean, when's the last time we had a gutless? I mean, pre-Jimmy Butler to be sure, but it was a gutless effort. I mean, they did not look locked in. They did not look engaged. They looked like a team that hadn't really thought much about playing this game at the end of the trip. And they were getting embarrassed. 35-15 at the end of the first quarter. The Nets were really being physical with Stephen Curry. And the Warriors were frustrated in a big way. And you saw Steph with the frustration as he threw Keon Johnson off of him, knocked him down in the midst of that 27-5 start after Keon Johnson had just been pestering him, hacking him, slapping at him, bumping him. And the Nets, I think, kind of had we're going to just come in and kind of just be, thug the game out, basically. Just be a bunch of goons at the beginning of the game and see if the Warriors could handle it. You got Zaire Williams into the quarter, mixing it up a little bit with GP2. And I do think in some way that might have woken the Warriors up. I think the other thing that really helped the Warriors was just how many Warrior fans were on hand in Brooklyn, as has been the case with regularity. I mean, you got Stephen Curry getting MVP chance in Brooklyn, and that's been something that's a regular deal. Enter the Draymond in the YouTube chat, hungover. Yeah, they looked hungover. Again, they did. It was like a 2-day hangover. It was like spending 2 days in Vegas, and then you got to get up and show up for a big meeting at 9:00 on Monday morning. You flew back from Vegas at 5:30 on Monday morning to make sure you could spend the whole time, the whole weekend there, no recovery, just show and go. And yeah, the Warriors just didn't have it. I mean, it was as bad, as ugly, as gutless. I mean, it was a poor performance, but more than anything, really a poor effort. And I do think that has been something that I've bookmarked at different points as a concern for this team, that as they continue to roll, and look, they're rolling now, 10-1 when Jimmy Butler plays, 10-2 since the trade. They are 7 over 500 at 35-28. They keep their hold on the 6th seed in the Western Conference playoff picture. And scanning around here at the scoreboard tonight, Houston's going to get a win, it looks like, although the Warriors were up 10 with a minute to go, and they damn near blew the game. Houston's up 10 with a minute to go at New Orleans. So no ground to be gained as it relates to the Rockets, but the Grizzlies did get beat again last night by Oklahoma City, and the Warriors finding themselves now 7 over at 35-28. But the Rockets are going to move back to 3 in front of them, and the Warriors are going to be 3.5 and 4 back in the loss column to the Grizzlies here. So quick check of that. How did this game flip for the Warriors, where it started with the beginning of the second quarter? The start of the second quarter group for the Warriors, which because of the Brandon Podziemski injury tonight, consisted of Pat Spencer in Podziemski's spot with Moses Moody, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, and Quentin Post. And the Warriors were a +9 in that time when Steph sat. And the Warriors had cut it all the way down to 10. Brooklyn had gotten it to back up to 15. And the Warriors were +10 with Curry off the court and -20 in that basically entirely the first quarter that Steph played. Warriors then with a 13-2 run to make it a 4-point game at 56-52. But Steph has just been on, I mean, hard to find the words to describe the heater that he's been on, not only on this road trip, but really since Jimmy Butler has joined the team. Another just absolutely ridiculous half-court buzzer beater. He bookends the trip with halftime buzzer beaters. This one officially, a 38-footer from inside of half-court, but ends up with 16 at the half, helped key that run at the end of the quarter. And Steph at that point had made 29 of 56 from 3-point range. And then he added a few more in the second half, and the Warriors wind up winning this game by 2. So cutting it all the way down in the second quarter, 40-25 Warriors after trailing by as many as 22. They end up down just 5 at the half. And what are you going to do with Podziemski out? Guy Santos gets the start in the second half for Podziemski. Moses Moody slides over to the 2, and immediately the defense is ramped up a little bit there. But the Nets hung tough in the third quarter, and the Warriors found themselves, even though they won the third quarter 31-29, the Nets did enough to where the Warriors were down 3 going to the fourth. And we've kind of jokingly talked about this stat all year, with the Warriors 1-22 when trailing after 3 quarters. Well, they were trailing at the end of the third tonight, and they found a way to get a win for just the second time this season. Got to go all the way back to right before New Year's, the last time the Warriors won when trailing after three quarters. So now 2-22 are the Warriors there. And, I mean, Jimmy Butler, just a monster. Warriors won the game in the non-Curry minutes, really in both halves, but they won the game when Curry went out toward the end of the third quarter and the beginning of the fourth quarter. Steve Kerr, I think by necessity, as opposed to by design, went to a big lineup to begin the quarter. Jimmy Butler, Buddy Hield, Guy Santos, Draymond Green, and Quentin Post. And Buddy Hield was just miserable tonight. I mean, and Buddy's had some struggles, and every time Buddy struggles, it obviously makes major headlines on this show and in the Warriors stratosphere, social media, and among the fan base and everything. Buddy 0 for 8 tonight in 23 minutes. I don't think he would have played 23 minutes tonight had it not been for the Brandon Podziemski injury. He was that bad. But Buddy had nothing. 0 for 5 from 3. He missed a couple right at the top of the fourth quarter. And Steve Kerr, who has been pretty willing to let Buddy Hield stay out there and have a little extra leash, even on nights where he isn't hitting shots because the Warriors, for the most part, lack the shooting, Kerr ripped him out of the game. And again, I know Warrior fans are thinking and saying and screaming, not soon enough, Steve. Not soon enough did you get Buddy Hield out of the game there in the fourth quarter, or even why did you go back to him for as long as you did in the third quarter? But he went to Moses Moody, and basically Jimmy Butler was running the point. Draymond was out there as a point forward. You had the 2-point forwards. You had Moody out there with Guy Santos and Quentin Post. Not necessarily by design, but by necessity, because Hield was so terrible. You have to rest Curry, and Podziemski was out. So the Warriors went big, and that group, Jimmy Butler, Moses Moody, Guy Santos, Draymond Green, and Quentin Post, that group won the Warriors the game, in addition to just another monster performance after the tough start to this one from Stephen Curry as he goes for 40. Warriors outscored the Nets 15-6 in the non-Steph minutes, wound up being plus 18 for the game in the non-Steph minutes. Warriors were up 95-91 when Curry came back in. They pushed it up to an 8-point advantage there, and eventually a 10-point advantage. Curry with a big three, some big free throws. But the end of the third, start of the fourth, Jimmy Butler, that was as dominant a stretch as we've seen. And I think you could make the case, 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. If you want to jump in and join the conversation on this, we'll get to the phones here in just a second with our buddy Evan. But I think you could make the case tonight was the most complete imposing of one's will type of a game that Jimmy Butler has had now as a member of the Golden State Warriors. And he, like everyone, really didn't have it early. But as the Warriors got back into the game and fought, and the game hung in the balance there into the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, Jimmy defensively dominated the game. Jimmy aggressive offensively, drawing fouls, getting to the line, buckets. Like and the Warriors were attacking all night. D'Angelo Russell and Cam Thomas, they found the weak links and really attacked all night. But what Jimmy Butler did, that was as close to the dominant Jimmy Butler, I think, as we've seen in any given stretch since he's been a member of the Golden State Warriors. And you look at the Warriors now 10-1 in the 11 games that he played, and plus 17 tonight. It tells the story. Steph had 40 and was a minus 16. I mean, you think about that, it's almost hard to believe. But Jimmy Butler, 10 of 10 at the line. He gets to the 20-point mark for the first time since the first 3 games. He had 20 in Chicago, in Milwaukee, in Dallas, and he hadn't hit 20 since. Tonight, they needed every bit of it. And Jimmy Butler was there, still only 13 shots, but he gets to the line 10 times, and all the physicality that the Nets were trying to put on the Warriors wound up leading the Warriors to have a big-time advantage at the free throw line. And that advantage was essentially Jimmy Butler getting there 10 times on his own. Warriors making 29 of 32 free throws. And that is more than enough to allow for the Warriors to rally from 22 and eke it out 121 to 119. But you look at the numbers for Steph Curry on this road trip. I mean, just spectacular. I mean, reinvigorated doesn't even begin to describe the level that Steph Curry's playing at since Jimmy Butler joined this team. I mean, he is back to MVP top 5 of all time level since Jimmy Butler has joined, and the wins have followed. And yeah, Robert Brown in the YouTube chat, the minus 16 for Curry, that is pretty wild when you score 40 points. But the combinations, and really it's the bad start. I mean, the Warriors were, you take the first quarter out of it, and it was basically +4 for the rest of the game, but they were that bad that it was, minus 16. Steph was a +4 the rest of the game, but a minus 20 with everybody else that was out there predominantly with the starters. But yeah, tonight was a game where it was the bench, and it was Jimmy Butler's, I think, just domination in terms of willing a team to win. And it was Wardell, Steph, and Curry, who's just on playing as well as he has in the last 4 years right now for this Warriors team as they win for the 10th time in 12 games overall and the 10th in 11 since Jimmy Butler's been added to the equation. All right, let's get to our buddy Evan in Sunnyvale. 808 KNBR is the number, 415-808-5627. Evan, our tip-off caller tonight here on the Sports Leader. What's going on tonight, Evan?
Oh, it's Vince.
Oh, hey, what's up, Vince? Okay, sorry, we had a little miscommunication there on the board.
No, it's okay. I just want to first of all, I appreciate you. I listen to you every day, every time you're on. Even when I'm at work, I still put it on blast you on me at work. We'll give you a heads up on that one. I appreciate everything you do. And I was just telling the guys, it's like, we need to appreciate Steph Kerr right now. We're not. I don't think I literally listen to everybody from KNBR, and they're like, "Are we taking him for granted?" Yes, 1,000%. He's being taken for granted right now. It's amazing. Like and I get it. Like Jimmy Butler definitely was like a steroid boost, but at the same time, I think I'm really recording my games now, or my DVR right now, because I know if we're gonna ever see this again from him. And yeah, man, yeah. I thought that's all I want to say. It's easy.
No, I appreciate it, Vince. Thank you. I mean, well said, short and sweet, and to the point. I mean, sometimes is best. He is an all-time great. I mean, the conversation, there's a reason over the last few days that the conversation has again come up about putting him in the discussion as the all-time best player or most influential player, or however you want to cut it. And, that's not necessarily the debate for tonight, but I think it's without a doubt top 10 now. I mean, if he gets the 5th championship, I mean, Steph, LeBron, I mean, you got Michael Jordan, you got LeBron. You can start getting into some of the old-time centers, the Wilts, some of those types. Kobe obviously is going to be in the conversation. But, I mean, Steph, I think he's already top 10. And as I've always said, you have to see how a career finishes before I think you can really slot somebody in. But if he gets another title, I mean, that's a whole nother stratosphere for Steph, and the stuff that he's doing just in terms of a showman. It's a different world. It's just, I've said that so many different times to so many different people. It is a different world now for the Warriors. They are back to being a viral team. 1, because they're winning. 2, because Jimmy Butler's arrival has allowed Steph Curry to look like Steph Curry again. And, that was a legitimate debate that was going on. how was Steph, was Steph declining, and to what level was Steph declining? And I know Warrior fans and the pundits and talk show hosts and everybody else would be screaming back and forth. Is it the lack of not having a quality number 2 option, or is it the fact that Steph's just getting older and he's going to be 37 a week from tomorrow? Well, clearly, I think the question is being answered, and we would never have known had the Warriors not gone and gotten Jimmy Butler. But clearly, the decline was overestimated. It was not. It was more about the fact that the Warriors did not have a second best player that was quality enough to allow him to have any kind of freedom to cook. And now he's got that. And so the Warriors are benefiting from it, and he's benefiting from it. And all of a sudden he looks like an all-time great, even at a advanced age that's doing all-time great things. And now the Warriors collectively are doing things, and that just puts the spotlight more on him. And I think the more the spotlight is on him, the more he delivers, especially in these games that are in the big markets and nationally televised. All right, 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Let's go ahead and take a quick timeout. We'll get Keith in Monterey. You're up first after the break. We'll get into the YouTube chat with our first installment of Kyle's Clicks. Warriors get a big win, a 4-1 trip. Stephen Curry, an all-timer in terms of the heater that he's been on here for the last month, and we're here for it. We're talking about it. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader.
Hoops Heads Dubs OT with John Dickinson keeps balling. Streaming live at twitch.tv/thesportsleader.
Butler for the lead. Why not? His first three. The Warriors have flipped this game by 25 points.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler, that three in the third quarter after the Warriors entered the third down by 5. And they had a 3-point lead at that point. NBC Sports Bay Area on the call. A night of MVP chants for Steph at Barclays in Brooklyn, and the Warriors with a hell of a win. It wasn't pretty, and a lot of these games have not been pretty for the full 48. I don't think this Warriors team, as great as they've been in terms of the one-loss record, and as spectacular as Steph has been, and Jimmy Butler's changed everything, others playing at a much higher level, I still don't think this team is overall talented enough or complete enough to where it's going to be, or young enough, frankly, in the key players to have even games against Brooklyn turn into complete and utter laughers. Like, the big question I think coming into the game was, hey, the Warriors can go 4-1 on this trip. They're playing an inferior opponent. Yeah, Brooklyn's going to be scrappy and try to fight, and they've had some blowout losses of late as well. A lot of Warrior fans obviously in the building, and so you're kind of wondering, are the Warriors going to come out and kind of take care of business early? And the answer is I just don't think you can expect that the way you could have expected it in other years, even though it's clear that this team is a much better version of themselves than they've been at any point since the 2022 championship. So let's get to a couple of calls here. 808 KNBR. Keith in Monterey. Appreciate you holding on. You are up next here on Dubs OT on the Sports Leader. Hey, Keith.
Hello. Yeah, my pleasure. You made some good points about Butler being able to just free up Curry just enough for him to do his thing. It's been awesome. And probably many people were kind of like, well, will Butler even work out? And it's just been fantastic. Tell me this. Don't you think Curry could be maybe the greatest little player ever in the NBA? I mean, you talked about him being top 10 all time. I think he's made a point that he could be the greatest little guy.
Like 6'3" and under? Or you have to define little though. Is it 6'3" and under? Is it guard
and shoot. I think 6'3" and under. I mean, because also look at Curry. Remember, like he wasn't as physical when he came into the league. The bad ankles. And it seems to me that that's the one aspect of his game that he's improved more than anything is his physicality. He's a little stockier now. He's a little stronger. He's definitely not thick, but Curry's not getting hurt. Knock on wood. And I just think that his physical game is as good as any for his size, and just he can control the game like nobody can. So, anyways, just my opinion.
Doubt.
But you made some great points.
Yeah, he matured, and thank you, Keith. I mean, he matured and he worked on it because teams were really trying to in the midst of the MVPs just toss him around and basically break him. I mean, break him down and make him feel it. And when he started to build that strength mid to late 20s and even more so, I think, into the early 30s, he became he became a better finisher. He became, I think, more equipped to just withstand the pounding and continue to get back up and fight through and wait for his moments in games to where he would have the ability to take him over. So no, I think that, I think his handle and the physical strength and sturdiness are the two things. Like, he had a handle coming in, but he really, with all the dribbling drills and different things, like the handle to be a true point guard. Like, that was the question coming in, was did he have the handle to be a true point guard? You knew he could be one of the all-time great shooters, but he developed with all the dribbling drills that he made famous and the work that he did into an elite handler and point guard and ability to set up all of these different crazy shots that he knocks down. So I would put the ball handling up there in addition to the strength and conditioning. Danny in Vancouver next here on the Sports Leader. Hey, Danny, good to hear from you.
Always a pleasure to speak to JD. Been busy, but watching all the games and listening to you, of course, but on the podcast. So I get a chance to call in, so I'm happy. Great win tonight. My first thought that the first quarter, just some observations, first quarter was so horrific. I thought, man, did they have a party for Dre's birthday after the New York game? I thought they must have been out all night.
And it lasted 2 days, Danny. Apparently it lasted about 40 hours.
I mean, I swear, I'm sure there was hangover, and it was so horrific. But they came back, which was unbelievable. I'm sorry to see Pod go down. I hope he's okay. I didn't even know what happened. They didn't announce it. But anyways, I thought Curry was he's playing out of his mind. I mean, what can you say? He's just you run out of things to say about him. He's just so incredible. Jimmy Butler is interesting. He's so solid, but he's not. I think you agree, JD. He's not flashy at all. So you sort of you don't notice him as much, and then you look and see, he has such an oversized impact on the game, and it's just he's not flashy. He's just super solid and fundamental. So he's just great. I mean, he's just got such an amazing effect on the Warriors. Of course, you're right about Buddy Hield. I sort of understand Kerr's logic. I think he thinks, well, if he gets hot, I leave him in the beginning, right? And then he figures, it's going to eventually, you're going to have reversion to the mean. I mean, after he hits 0 for 10, you think he's going to have to hit the next 3 or 4 shots. But I think what happened, he was just playing so badly, and he also threw the ball away, some idiotic turnovers. So I think that's what just killed them. I think, and I'm glad he sat down. Last comment, and then I will enjoy your rebuttal. Quentin Post, I think, is developing before our eyes. I mean, I thought he was really solid on defense. Again, I'd love to hear your comments, JD, but I thought he was so solid on defense. I mean, he's not going to, everyone gets burned by Cam Johnson, but some of those players are so quick and long. But I thought he was so solid. He made some great passes, and he posted well. I really felt like he took some of the stuff that happened in New York and incorporated and became better. So would love to hear your comments. Love your show as always. Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. 808 KNBR. We got a couple of lines open if you want to jump in here in the 8 o'clock hour. Really nice bounce back game for Quentin Post. He didn't handle the physicality great in the game at Madison Square Garden the other night. He handled the physicality much better tonight. He just seemed much more comfortable. And as we've said a lot on this show, he's not soft. It's just a matter of getting comfortable in certain situations, being able to go up strong and just not let the physicality get you off your mark. And I thought tonight he didn't. He stuck in there really well. And as for the rest of it, I mean, I give Kerr credit for getting Buddy out. If he had waited another 2 minutes, it might have been the difference between winning and losing. Now that they only won the game ultimately by 2 points, so Kerr got him out. It's tough tonight without Podziemski, and the Warriors still don't have a lot of guards. Moody's been playing a little more too, and he did after that. And I think that also bodes well potentially when Kuminga comes back, if they're more comfortable playing Moody at the 2 a little bit than at least they have been in the past. So good night all around there as it relates to Buddy. We'll get some more thoughts on it coming up here after the top of the hour. And we'll get into the YouTube chat as well. So 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. We're keep this thing going all the way up until 9 o'clock tonight. We got Sounds of Dubs OT coming up. All of that and much, much more fun with numbers. Warriors win it 121-119. It's KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
This is KNBR, and this is Dubs OT with John Dickinson. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
Steph from midcourt. Oh, did he ghost him on that too? Oh my goodness, Curry from 45 feet. Yo, this dude is amazing. What did he just do? He had one from three-quarter court in Orlando. He's double teamed. He had nowhere to go. Steph's got 16.
And the Warriors down 5 at that point to Steph right at the halftime buzzer. He ends up with 40. Warriors win 121-119. They are 10-1 with Jimmy Butler in the fold since the trade. 10-2 officially since the trade, but again, we saw how fragile this thing still is for the Warriors. He doesn't play. They can't beat Philly. Pretty safe to say if he didn't play tonight, the Warriors wouldn't have beat Brooklyn. Even on the road. That's the one thing as we bring in Kyle Har here at the beginning of the 8 o'clock hour. I mean, I hate to keep doing this, but every night I kind of do it in my mind where I go, yeah, if they didn't have Jimmy Butler, would they have won or lost this game? And I swear to you, they're 10-2 in the last. I feel like they'd be 2-10 if they hadn't made the trade. Like they would be absolutely freaking cooked. But they're not. Now we're talking about the 5th seed, the 4th seed, and potentially being a title contender as soon as this season.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Copes put this out on his Twitter where he thought this was Jimmy's best game. And I think I would go there in terms of I really don't think they won this game without Jimmy, especially how clutch he was in the non-Steph minutes, getting to the free throw line and continuing to put up points in those non-Steph minutes was critical tonight.
Yeah, I think this was his best game. I completely agree. The 25, I think he was dominant defensively in the game. I mean, he ends up 6 assists. He had 3 steals. The Warriors didn't really get out in transition and have, that. But they did get 18 points off of 12 turnovers. They didn't force a lot of turnovers. They turned it over too much themselves. Not a lot of the transition points that have come off of the great defense, but I thought tonight, I mean, it really was in that end of the third, beginning of the fourth quarter. It was Jimmy Butler just taking the game over really on both ends. Getting what he wanted offensively and just defensively. I think there's an imposing of one's will on the opponent. And I think Jimmy tonight imposed his will as the game went on. He likes games like that. He likes going at it with OG Anunoby physically and saying, oh, you think you can prevent me from getting to the cup? Yeah, no, you can't, at least not without fouling me. He likes, team like Brooklyn, kind of chippy tonight. I thought Brooklyn had a little bit of that bad team. We're gonna like tonight actually, and this didn't have anything to do with Pajemski in his injury, which by the way was the lower back soreness. He left in the first minute, but I thought tonight was kind of we know we can't compete with you from a basketball standpoint, so we're just going to try to mug you all night and be as physical as possible and just junk the game up that way, and maybe we'll hit some shots and hang in the game. And I thought, that can be the kind of game to where if you're already maybe playing a little, hungover from a couple of days in New York, we'll say, maybe not literally hungover, but hungover from a couple of days in New York. If you're already a step slow and a team's really bringing it at you like that, and read the Steed, hangovers last longer when you're old. Yeah, where's there an older team? At least, yeah, Draymond and Draymond and Steph into the 30s there with Jimmy Butler. But all in all, it winds up being a great win. It would have been a really bad loss. And, the Warriors were up 10 with a minute to go. And I mean, it was a game that I really thought all day and for the last couple of days that the Warriors were going to win the game. It's funny, even when they got down 27-5 and it's 40-20 or whatever the heck it was, it reminded me of the game in Chicago. And I think Brooklyn's got a little more talent right now on their team than Chicago did, but it reminded me of the game in Chicago, how bad the Warriors played, and then how quickly they were able to, just in about 5 or 6 minutes, they're in the game now. And once they were in the game, you thought, they're going to win it. And it didn't obviously turn into a blowout. And the Nets deserve credit for hanging around, in particular in the third quarter, to have the lead still going to the fourth quarter. But I thought Jimmy Butler imposed his will on the Nets. And then, Steph Curry, sheesh. 40 in this one, 28 at the Garden on Tuesday night, a pedestrian 21 in his return home at Charlotte, 29 at Philly, and then the 56-point performance in the opener of the road trip at Orlando, and the 12 3-pointers. And he goes for 17, 25, he had 32 3-pointers on the 5-game trip. And he's just been absolutely on one here since Jimmy Butler has joined the fray. First 4 games for Steph with Jimmy Butler in the fold. First 4 games, 34, 38, 25, 27. And then you come out of the break, 20, 30, 15. But then on this trip, incredible. You look at what he's done on this trip, going for the 40 tonight, and then you look at the 56 in the opener, and my quick math, 32 a game on the trip, and 32, making 6 threes a game. It's just incredible stuff. So 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Let's get our first installment here of Kyle's Clicks. Max Lopez jumping in, and we appreciate everybody watching on YouTube and Twitch. Butler and Curry are such a good match. He just brings the stability that lets Steph cook. So much like Iggy, but a better scorer. Yeah, he is just a really fundamentally sound. Danny in Vancouver nailed it. He's just not a flashy player at all, but he does everything really the right way for the most part. And he's a willing passer. That's something that I always come back to. Willing, could he fit in the Warrior system? If you're a willing passer, you can fit into I think any system. And he's also a willing passer that I think is picking his spots more and more in key moments to look to try to attack. And he really doesn't have a jumper at all. He hit the 3 that we played coming in, but he doesn't have a jumper really at all right now. And over the years, he's been somebody that can at least hit 15 to 17 foot jumpers. His 3 ball comes around a little bit, and I know the Warriors are telling him to be more aggressive, and he's basically telling his teammates, I'm good. I'm comfortable. I like where this thing's at. And so he just knows how to get the job done and be effective. Knows how to Robert Brown. Jimmy just knows how to manipulate defenders very well. From the YouTube chat. I think that's a great way of saying it. Erwin Kwong, Jimmy Butler's best physical game. Yeah, he was spectacular tonight. He wants the smoke, and the Warriors need it. They have needed it, and he just really the first night. The opposites attract. You go back to Chicago, and just Steph saying, hey, his game's basically the opposite of mine. It is, I think, clicked in ways that you didn't really think that it would, but in some ways, just more, just even more effective. So yeah, great stuff from Steph and Curry and from Jimmy Butler on this trip. And they get enough from everybody else, some key contributors in this one, and they win at 121-119. FL Dubs fan, this game, Jimmy was most assertive. Yeah, the most assertive I've seen him since the trade. I think that's also a strong way of putting it. he's getting more comfortable, which should concern the rest of the West. He brings toughness, and the West ain't that tough. Fair point. I mean, he's when he figures out efficient ways to get his, and his jumper comes along a little bit, it truly does become, I think, a lookout for the rest of the Western Conference. And the Warriors are coming. I mean, 35-28, and you look at the standings, and what do we got tonight? I'm clicking around here. We're Thursday night, so looking at some of the scores from earlier. Knicks and Lakers are going at it right now, and the Knicks with a 57-47 lead on the Lakers right now, as that game is approaching the half down in LA. But you look at the Warriors 2.5 back of the Rockets, and the Rockets did win tonight, so that gets pushed back to 3 now. Warriors are 3 back, 3 in the loss column. It's just a straight up 3. Rockets have 19 to go. Warriors have 19 to go. They play each other one more time. Warriors are 3.5 back of Memphis, but 1 in the loss column. Or I'm sorry, 4 in the loss column. And so we'll see how that, they play one more time on April the 1st. We've kind of laid that out. So yeah, they can get to 3.5 back with 1 head-to-head, 3 back with 1 head-to-head, and you already have the tiebreaker. And by the way, if the Warriors can beat Memphis in Memphis, which is not something they've done a lot in recent memory, other than the one game they had to have in that playoff series back in 2022, Memphis has kind of been a little bit of a house of horrors for them, including the blowout loss there in December. But if they can win that game in April, they would also get the tiebreaker over the Grizzlies, because they would beat them 3 out of 4. They did beat the Grizzlies both times at Chase, and again, they've beaten Houston 3 out of 4. So yeah, 5 seeds on the table, 4 seeds on the table. You really don't know what you're going to get if you end up 6th, other than the fact that you're guaranteed to be in a first-round series without having to go through the play-in tournament, because Denver and the Lakers are just going to go back and forth potentially between who's number 2, who's number 3, who's number 3, who's number 2. Right now it's the Lakers. If the Lakers lose tonight and they're down by 10 right before halftime, Lakers lose tonight, they're back in 3rd. And so you can play the game of, you want to get to 6th, then obviously you do, but your fate is in terms of who you're going to play between the Lakers and Nuggets is determined based on those two teams' level of engagement. And make no mistake, you'd rather be in the Rockets Grizzlies part of the bracket, and I think you'd rather be in the Oklahoma City part of the bracket than you would be in the Lakers and the Nuggets part of the bracket. Let's get back to the phones. Big Sam in San Francisco next here on the Sports Leader. Hey Sam.
Hey, what's going on, my man? Hey, look here, man. First off, I really enjoy your program, especially post game, and you really bring it, man. And I think on a basketball level, and not just basketball, but other sports, that you bring a plethora of information. But I'm sure the listeners, the fans, coming from a win, enjoy listening to JD. But I want to at least get that intro across the board and say you really bring it when the Warriors, especially when they win. I really look, and I'm an old Showtime fan. I'll root for the Warriors
sure.
when I'll root for the Warriors when I'm 50. So I grew up in the 70s, late 70s and 80s watching Showtime. But I will root for the Warriors, honestly, through my heart when Los Angeles is not playing. And I gotta look. It's about 20 games left, and I really think that, look, OKC is gonna stay locked in at 1, and like you just said, the Nuggets and Lakers are going to fight 2-3, 3-2, 2-3. But the Warriors, I really believe, deep down, as a longtime basketball passionate fan, that they will lock in a 5 spot. I really believe that. You got nearly 20 games, and you are seeing the level of play that they're playing. Now, once the regular season is over, I really think that Jimmy Buckets and Steph are going to collaborate. They're already doing so now. And I wanted to ask you, once Kuminga, and they're fine without Kuminga, and I don't know if Steve is going to rotate Moses or they're going to play Knox a little more. I was at the game the other night against Charlotte, and Steve rested everybody right at the third quarter because it was, the game was already over. But I like the Knox kid. He's a former first-round draft pick. My question to you, JD, is once Kuminga is healthy enough, how are his minute selections going to be, and how is he going to respond to Jimmy being in the lineup? Hey, thanks so much. You always bring it. Keep doing your thing, man, and thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Big Sam. Look, they've got a shot at 5. I didn't think it was possible before a week ago. I thought, 5 games back, 22 to go, that's going to be tough. You get to 3 back with 19 to go, and look, they gained Monday night, they gained Tuesday night. They didn't gain any ground tonight, but Monday and Tuesday they gained a game each night. So they immediately, and Kyle Harr will tell you, I think I said if they could get to where it's 3 with about 12 to go, you could say you still have a shot. Well, they got it to 3 with 19 to go, so they've got a shot. Like the math suddenly works. As for Kuminga, look, I think he should benefit from Jimmy Butler. I think he's going to have to play a little bit differently than he was playing before the injury, where they really, by necessity, were trying to open things up a little bit more for Kuminga to be a more ball dominant, I think, type scorer, because they were just so desperately looking for somebody who could be the number 2 option next to Steph, and he was obviously a willing person to do it, as somebody that's looking to get paid large and views himself as a future star. And I think there's some within the Warriors organization that view himself. None of that matters when he comes back. I think, and I've said this a lot, it's about the little things. It's about the cuts. It's about the dunker spot. It's about using the gravity of Steph, which has been a big topic the last couple of days. I know the Warriors have spent a lot of time trying to really, with Steph on such a heater, get the other players on the roster to understand how much easier that makes the game for them. The Warriors got a couple of dunks at the end of the Knicks game, basically on cuts because the Knicks were trying to take Curry away, and it was just opening things up to where you make a quick pass, 2 passes, and anybody on the roster can get an easy layup or a dunk. I think that's where Kuminga really, really can, taking advantage of scrambling defenses, cutting, getting out in transition, really looking to, not have to score as much, but defend and rebound. And I really, I was skeptical as to how it would look with Kuminga initially when they traded for Jimmy Butler. I'm a lot more optimistic. And I think the way that it's all shaken out, where they've done so well without him. I mean, I saw some of the Draymond Green quotes from a couple of days ago in New York after the Knicks game. The beat writers were kind of asking Draymond about it, and he basically said, hey, this is a great problem. That it's a great thing for Kuminga that the team is playing well, because it takes a little bit of the pressure off of him. It's not like he has to come back and think he has to salvage it. It's just come back and do your thing and take advantage of the fact that you're on a better team now than you were when you left. And that should be good for everybody. So I think he has the potential to really help in a very natural, within the flow and the context of the offense, stop a lot of, some of these dry spells just by getting a bucket here, getting a free throw there. He's somebody kind of like Jimmy that isn't afraid to drive a little bit into contact, but it's not so much going to be Kuminga out on the deck, at the wing, dribble, create, it's going to be off the scrambling nature of a defense based on what the Warriors are running. To me, it should only make the game easier for Kuminga, as long as, it's a less is more kind of a thing for Kuminga is the way that I've put it. And I think, injuries can always change it, but he was coming off the bench before. So I think he is going to come off the bench, at least initially. I think it's interesting that the Warriors have been a little bit more willing to play Moses Moody at the 2, including the start of the second and fourth quarter groups. They've put Quentin Post out there. They've played Moody at the 2. They've played Draymond. They've played Jimmy Butler. And it's been Pajemski. Tonight it was Pat Spencer. in the first half, and it was Buddy Hield in the second half. But they switched it up a little bit. They put Guy Santos out there in the second half as well. So a little different with the injuries and everything that was going on. But but Kuminga will play the 4, and I think he can play with Jimmy Butler. I think what's interesting to me is, the closing lineups. Steph will be out there. Jimmy will be out there. Draymond will be out there. I don't think Kuminga is guaranteed to be a closing player every night. I think there's basically 2 spots that are going to be available on a given night, and it might be Kuminga at the 4 and Draymond at the 5, and he gets one of those spots. It might be Kuminga at the 4, and Podziemski might get one because he's a guard, and if he's playing well, I think he probably gets one. It might be Moody or Kuminga some of the time. I wonder if it can be Moody and Kuminga some of the time. And that's the lineup that I don't know, given the history of the way Kerr has run it, is he going to be comfortable with Steph, Moody, Jimmy at the 3, Kuminga at the 4, Draymond at the 5? I don't know. Well, we'll see. Is that, 3 guys basically that can't consistently knock down a 3? Does that make you more guardable, even though you've got a lot of offensive talent and guys that can get to the free throw line and that kind of thing? We'll see how it all ultimately shakes out there. But I think it's a really nice problem to have. I don't think Kuminga should be feeling any pressure. We're going to hear a little bit coming up. Jake Fisher of Yahoo and Bleacher Report. He had a video where he shared some of his intel on the offseason for Kuminga and just where things stack up in terms of his contract and all of that. But no, I think Kuminga has the ability to be able to help this team. Let's get some more Kyle's clicks here. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. And I think Kuminga can help. The Warriors are not going to be fully healthy here over the last 19 games. So there are going to be games where Jimmy might have to miss, and you can figure out a way to get Kuminga in there. Draymond might have to miss. You can figure out, I think Kuminga tonight, if he was rolling, if he was 4 or 5 games back and comfortable, like a game like tonight, I don't think they get down 27-5 because he probably is in the game in the first 5 minutes off the bench. And tonight's one of those games where he might have had 8 points in 4 minutes. And instead of being down 20, you might be down 8 or 10. And, if that's the case and he comes in the second half and does it again, you might win. You might really win this game going away. So I think there are going to be nights where he helps him. And here's the other part that I do think is good. I do not, some may take this as a slight. The fact that the Warriors truly don't need him to be dominant is a good, if he doesn't play well, he just won't play. We've seen that the Warriors can win games at a high level without him. So he'll get every opportunity. But if it's not clicking on a given night, you're also not forced to have to play him. And I think having that margin for error is huge. That's he may not like it. It may not help his future earning potential in the summer if he's not playing a lot. Every night as a closer that's impactful, but I think his talent is undeniable. And I think that he does still provide a dynamic that can, this team is a little short in my mind. They're a little short of something. I don't think they quite have a championship caliber roster this year. Maybe they prove me wrong. There's still time for it to evolve. We've watched 11 games with Jimmy Butler in the fold. And Steph looks like he's playing as great as he's ever played over that stretch. But I still feel like this team is lacking something. A little bit of shooting, another one more playmaker. It's subtle. It's not another star. They're lacking something. And Kuminga is going to get the first shot to try to fill that void. And if he can provide enough of what they're lacking, then look out. If he can't, then they're going to have to figure out another way to add that. It's not even a specific skill set, to be honest. It's could they use another shooter? Yes. Obviously, he doesn't provide that. Could they just use one more guy who isn't afraid to go attack and score? Yes. They could definitely use that. Could they use another guard? Yeah. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would say, oh, they need another big, right? They need another big. Although Quentin Post has been huge. JC Mack, we need a Cam Johnson. Yeah, well, if you've listened or watched this show, you know how I feel about that. And I was watching Cam Johnson tonight. Like I think Cam Johnson would be fantastic for this Warriors team. By the way, just a quick little note that popped up here, baseball note. Even though this is Dubs OT, but Lawrence Butler of the A's, 7-year contract extension, 7 years and $66.5 million. So the A's are just they get out of Oakland and they're just handing out contracts left and right. So yeah, he's Butler 24, rookie last year, 7-year extension. So yeah, they lock him up here moving forward. So yeah, 808 KNBR. Let's get Eric in San Francisco before we take a timeout. We'll get to Sounds of Dubs OT. Hey, Eric, you're on the Sports Leader.
Hey, JD. Great comeback win. I was 27-5. I was like, well, this is going to be an early night. I thought the 2-night hangover was settling in, but fortunately they pulled that out and then almost blew it right there at the end. But I had a question for you. I was wondering, with the emergence of Post, I was thinking that might actually help Kuminga in the second unit because, Kuminga's, the Butler Kuminga spacing may not necessarily be the greatest, but with Post kind of acting as the stretch 4, but I mean, obviously he's playing the 5. I was thinking like a second unit of Pods, like GP2 or Moody, and then Butler, Kuminga, Post. That's like, with Post acting as the defective stretch in that might actually help space the floor, where Pods and Butler acting as the ball handlers and facilitators. And then you either got GP2 for defense or Moody for point of attack and a little bit more spacing. So I was thinking that actually might help Kuminga. What a steal at the 52nd pick in a crap draft that Post has turned out to be. But I was thinking that might help because I'm worried about Kuminga's fit in the closing lineup of Draymond, Kuminga, Butler, fourth player, and Curry. Even if it's Pods or Moody, they're inconsistent 3-point shooters. So, the spacing might be a little cramped. But in terms of the second unit, where he could really play downhill, and then you've got kind of bully ball getting to the free throw line between Butler and Kuminga, and then you've got Post kind of acting out. He's shooting like 40+%.
Yeah, he's above 40. Yeah. Yeah, he was at 42 a couple games ago when I haven't looked the last couple games, and he was at 42.5, I think, on Monday or Tuesday.
And, he's been pretty reliable, and he's got for a big man, he's got a quick release. It's very compact.
Yeah, he shoots it, Eric, he shoots it like a guard. He kind of moves like he sets his shot up like a 7-foot guard. Like he'll take a dribble step, he catches and shoots it well. Like he really great form, great. I want to ask you this, Eric, because you mentioned the second unit. And so Kerr, and it's changed a little bit. It did tonight because of the injury. The start of the second and fourth quarter. So basically when Steph is out, Kerr has gone with Podziemski, Moody, Butler, Draymond at the 4, Quentin Post at the 5. That's been that group. I think they want Kuminga in that group. Who's the guy that comes out in your mind in that instance?
I really think it comes down to how Pods is playing, because with Butler and Green, you've got enough ball handling, and you've got in Philly, Pods played horribly. In New York, he played pretty good. It seems like the biggest problem I have with Moody and Pods is just that game to game, their offense, the effort's always there and the hustle's always there, but the ability to put the ball in the basket isn't there. And that's where I think Kuminga really strengthens the second unit, because at worst, he was getting to the line, 8 times a game right before he got hurt. So, I mean, he can at least manufacture points at the foul line. And I think Butler is really going to help him on the screen and roll game. So I think it's kind of a game by game. I know that's not, you'd rather have a set rotation, obviously, but I don't think either. I don't know. So
yeah. No, it's interesting. I don't think it'll be Podziemski that comes out, just because you want to have another guard ball handler, and I know Jimmy and Draymond can handle it. So and Jimmy will be out there with that. I think you want Post out there. I think it might actually be Draymond that ends up maybe not playing in that group.
I mean, reduce the minute load on Green wouldn't be bad, because he's playing so many minutes at center. If you could get him ideally down to I don't know.
And you play him more with Steph too.
Right.
So you play him more with Steph when Steph's out there, and then you sub maybe those two out together a little bit more, and you see if Kuminga and Jimmy can function together as a little 1-2 punch with the other group. I think that's probably the way they'll look to try it. And then you see, and then you augment it from there if you need more shooting, or if it doesn't work, you change it up. But I think that's probably the easiest way. And I also think, Guy Santos has been getting some run in the first and third quarters. I think Kuminga will take that. I think take some of those minutes basically at the 4, and that's where you'll get more. You'll get another 5 or 6 minutes a half that way. I think into the first and third quarters, and then he'll basically bridge into the first. He'll be out there into the first and third, be out there at the beginning of the second and fourth, and then you see how well he's playing as to whether he's in the finishing lineup.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think just with the minute allocation, even though Kuminga was playing 30 before, I think you're probably looking at 20 to 25 for him.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
A reason.
I think initially it's probably about 20, and I think it's 20 to 25, and I think it probably gets capped at most nights. It's probably going to be about 25 once he's rolling. I think it'll get into the 30s on nights where maybe they're shorthanded, or if he's really playing well. So yeah, I think that's the way they'll go. Great stuff, Eric. Good question. Appreciate it. All right, Eric in San Francisco. Good call. Good conversation. JC Mack here before we take a quick timeout. Combine Steph and Dre, Butler, and JK. There you go. Great minds. Great minds think alike right there. I do think that's probably the way they will tweak it, but because that group, as much as the Warriors have done well in the non-Steph minutes for the most part, there have been a few games where they have been stagnant. And I think that's where you do want Kuminga's aggression and ability to look to really score and get to the bucket, I think. But you got to have, and I think Quentin Post definitely is out there with that group to have the shooting. So, all right, let's take a timeout. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. We'll come back. Sounds of Dubs OT. We got fun with numbers, more Kyle's clicks, and we roll on here on KNBR 104.5 and 680. Dubs OT, Warriors win 121-119 on the Sports Leader.
KNBR presents the sounds of Dubs OT.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.
No class, no balls.
I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court.
Now here's John Dickinson.
All right, welcome back. Sounds of Dubs OT. Warriors win in Brooklyn, 121-119. 4-1 trip. Warriors are 35-28. And they are 3 back of the 5th spot in the Western Conference playoff race. Rockets did win tonight. Rockets hadn't won in a while, but they do get the job done. Houston winning at New Orleans. So that's a game that needed to be a layup for them, and they got it, 109-97, the final. And so the Rockets get off the schneid a little bit there. Houston back in action against the Pelicans again in Houston on Saturday. So Rockets, I think they have one of the more difficult schedules remaining, but taking advantage, at least they're going to have to. They start dropping games to Pelicans, they're going to be in big trouble. So let's hear from some of the Warriors players and from the head coach, Steve Kerr, in Brooklyn tonight. We got a couple of Steve Kerr, we got a couple of Steph Currys, and a Draymond Green as well. So let's get it going here first with Steve Kerr and some high praise for Jimmy Butler and everything that he's provided. Not only tonight, I think it was his best game with the Warriors, but since he's joined, the 10-1 kind of speaks for itself, and Steve was impressed.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy he's a superstar. I mean, that's what superstars do. They take over games, and I thought that's what he did tonight. 10 for 10 from the line. It was an incredibly physical game, and so we needed the physicality that he brought to the game, and we obviously had a really good second quarter to get us back in it, and Jimmy kind of led the charge. Obviously, Steph got going as well, but it was a good response from that punch in the mouth.
Yeah, got punched in the mouth early, down by 20, and then eventually 22. And yeah, it was the non-Steph group in the first quarter, but it was really Jimmy. I thought it was the group collectively in the second quarter that got the Warriors back in the game. I thought in the fourth quarter it was Jimmy kind of imposing his will and taking it over. So impressive stuff there from the newest member of the Warriors since the trade deadline. Let's continue here with more sounds of Dubs OT as the Warriors get the win. Another one from Steve Kerr. We talked about the road trip. I think my math was off. I'll recalculate it here while we listen to Steve. But I had Steph for 32 average on the 5-game trip. Either way, it was spectacular. And here's what the head coach had to say about Steph.
Steph just had an incredible trip, put on a show in every city. What he does is it's amazing. Just the show that he puts on, the joy that he brings to so many fans who are coming to see him play in all these different cities. Every fan base loves Steph. And it's there's a reason. He's an incredible performer.
Yeah, and I did, by the way, I redid the math. 174 points in 5 games. So 34.8 is what Steph averaged on this trip. And we had the numbers earlier. I mean, just unbelievable. You look at 32 threes made by Steph Curry on the 5-game trip. So over 6 a game. Ends up with 7 tonight, 5 against the Knicks, 5 against Philly, 12 against Orlando. Just unbelievable stuff. And Steph on the road. I mean, you look at the numbers there, and you look at some of these other road games in February that the Warriors have played. Incredible. I mean, at Utah, 32, at the Lakers, 37, at Chicago, 34, at Milwaukee, 38, at Dallas, 25, at Houston, 27. He has been out of this freaking world on the road since the Warriors have played, started all these games on the road, going back to really the night of the trade. for Golden State. I mean, the Warriors have had 2 home games since in the last month, basically. They lost to Utah and the Lakers. They ended up beating Chicago, Milwaukee, lost to Dallas, beat Houston, and then home for a couple right out of the gate, and then right back on the road. And 12 of 14, and you look at the Warriors through that 12 of 14, the first 2 without Jimmy Butler, but they end up 10-4 in those 14 games, and now 10-2 since the trade, and 10-1 in the games that Jimmy Butler has played in. All right, let's hear from Steph. He was asked, and the Warriors did have the 12-3 start to the season. This feels completely different than that did, and that was quality basketball those first 15 games. Steph asked if the Warriors are playing their best basketball.
I guess yes, but there's still another level. We're never going to get too ahead of ourselves. Like, each game is a one-game playoff type vibe where you just got to figure out a way to win. We are developing an identity and an understanding of how to win, but we can still play better. Obviously, to have the resilience to come back from down 20 in the first, 6 minutes, shows a lot about the belief that we have. Just got to keep doing it.
Yeah, and again, the Warriors have had some big-time runs in these games. They are playing their best ball this season. And I think it wasn't so much Steph reacting to does this compare to the 12-3 start. It was more, and I think this is where, scary hours, right, as they say. It's more the notion that Steph feels like this team can play even better. And look, they're going to have to play better. They're going to win a playoff series. They're going to have to play better than they have to this point. They're going to have to continue to play at this level if they want to get the 5 seed or the 4 seed. But then they're going to have to be even a level better than that if they're going to win a playoff series or win multiple playoff series, which obviously is the goal there. All right, 10 more free throws. We talked about it for Jimmy Butler in this one. 10 for 10 from Jimmy Butler at the free throw line. Steph addressed Jimmy Butler's ability to get all those free throws.
Yes, it's been a nice change of speed. We had a couple of tough possessions, especially against an athletic, physical, switching everything team like Brooklyn was tonight. He bailed us out. Jimmy bailed us out a couple of possessions where he got to the line, a couple of and-ones. And then that allows you to get into the bonus. So if there's any foul, you get into the line. It's not like you're foul baiting. You're just playing good basketball and drawing contact. And Jimmy does a great job of that. It puts all of us in a great position to, have good possessions. Yes, sir, G. And control the tempo even if we're not making shots.
Yeah, and those have made all the difference in the world. I think that's really helped the Warriors defensively in a big way. And it's helped stabilize their offense. It helps, and the Warriors have still had some of those scoring droughts, but you're less apt to have one of those scoring droughts when you have somebody that can get to the line and when you have somebody that can put the game in a position to where every foul puts you on the line. And we've seen teams hang in games against the Warriors because they've been a team that's fouled entirely too much over the last few years. And it can get you beat. And the Warriors are now, because of Jimmy Butler, able to use that to win games. All right, one more from Steph, and then we'll hear a final one from Draymond here. Steph on the notion, and a lot of people are talking about it. Are the Warriors a championship contender? I was on with Derek Papa and Copes, and he said, they've asked me a couple different times. All right, JD, what's the ceiling for the regular season? Where are they in the landscape of the whole NBA? I think right now they are the 6th best team in the league. You've got Boston and Cleveland and Boston. Out of respect, Cleveland number 1 in the East, and you've got OKC. And you've got the Lakers and Nuggets. Be fair to those 5. I think the Warriors are the next best team right now. But where does that stack up as far as them being a championship contender? Well, let's hear Steph's take.
I mean, your record usually indicates a good team. The style being dominant on both ends of the floor in different ways. There's all type of data that's indicative of if you're like top 10 in both offense and defense, you're usually in that contender category. And we have been since the trade. So that's positive, but you take all of that, but you just have a belief every night that you can win. And then you just keep doing that over and over and over again. And then when you get in a playoff series, which we hope to be in, you just commit to winning. And I think everybody's on the same page. The biggest thing is just understanding your role and what you do and how it impacts winning, and everybody committing to that. And we've done that in the last 12 games. Does it mean winning a championship? We'll see.
All I could think about as I was listening to that and looking at the Warriors record, Kyle, was this team's 10-1. They've played, varying degrees of opponents. I think for the most part, they've had a pretty soft schedule. But all I could think about in all of that was it's going to be really hard for any team to beat the Warriors 4 times out of 7. That just, when you look at how, and again, this homestand, I think, and we'll talk about the homestand a little bit coming up. We're going to keep it going a little bit beyond 9 o'clock here with fun with numbers and all of that. This homestand's sneaky tougher than people think. I'll use that as the tease here. But let's hear one more from Draymond Green as Steph goes for 40. And here's Draymond on Steph getting 40 against Brooklyn.
So, I saw this graphic the other day, and it showed his career high against everybody, and I screenshot it, and I was going to send it to him. I did it. But Steph is he's not selfish, but he's very calculated. So if I had to guess, he knew.
There's one more team left he hasn't dropped 40 on, and you play the next.
I saw that.
What do you think about that? You think that's happening next game?
Let's not piss the Pistons off.
Fair enough.
Wow. So Steph, and I hadn't seen that. So Steph's had 40 against every team in the league before tonight except Brooklyn and Detroit. Brooklyn and Detroit, if I'm reading that correctly. Wow, that's a good little nugget. But yeah, Steph incredible. And look, the Pistons are part of that. And Draymond, by the way, Draymond may owe an apology as well. We'll get to that coming up on the other side. 808 KNBR. Let's go ahead and take a timeout. We'll come back, and we got a few things we want to get to. We're going to get to our fun with numbers segment. We've got more of Kyle's clicks as we get into the 9 o'clock era. I also have 2 more pieces of sound that we want to play, not from post game tonight, but one relating to Jonathan Kuminga. Another one, Draymond legitimately may owe another NBA player an apology. Honestly, we'll get into that coming back, and him saying don't tick off the Pistons made me think of that. So we'll get to it coming back. Dubs OT, Warriors win 121-119. It's KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
All right, let's get to it. 9 o'clock hour. Warriors win 121 to 119. It's Dubs OT with JD. We got our final installment of Kyle's Clicks here as we roll on into the 9 o'clock hour. But let's get to our fun with numbers. So here's what we're going to do just to set the table quickly. We're going to do fun with numbers, and then we got a couple of extra pieces of sound that we didn't get to in our Sounds of Dubs OT. And then we're going to do some Kyle's Clicks and our comment of the night, and call it a night on that note. And we'll be back on Saturday for just Dubs, and then we'll take a quick look at the homestand that's coming up for the Warriors, because I think it's sneaky tougher than people think. A lot of numbers here tonight. Warriors end up 4-1 on the road trip, as they are now 35-28, 18-15 on the road. They've won 8 of the last 9 and 6 of the last 7 overall on the road. 10-1 now in games that Jimmy Butler has played since the trade. And the Warriors end up 10-4, as we talked about in the 14-game stretch here from February 5th to March 6th, 12 of 14 on the road, and they go 10-4 in that stretch. Warriors, following the loss against Utah, they were 25-25. They were tied for 9th that night, tied for 9th in the Western Conference. They then lost the next night in L.A. The Warriors have moved all the way up to 6th in the Western Conference standings. Warriors split the regular season series with the Nets. Still can't get the one back they lost in November at Chase. And yeah, tonight would have been horrific to get swept by the Nets in a regular season series. But Brooklyn led by 22. It was 27-5 in the first quarter. Third time this season the Warriors come back from down more than 20 to win. How about this? This is stunning to me, Kyle. Third time this season the Warriors overcame a deficit of at least 20 to win. That's the most by any team in the NBA this season. The Warriors have the most down 20 comebacks, 2 of them since Jimmy Butler arrived in Chicago when they were down 24, and they came back and beat the Bulls on February 8th in the Jimmy Butler debut game. Again, 10-1 with Jimmy in the lineup. The Warriors had 40 in the second quarter, 13th 40-point quarter. Fourth time this season the Warriors scored at least 40 points in the second quarter specifically. The Warriors trailed after 3 quarters, won for just the second time this season when trailing after 3 quarters. So they've got the most 20-plus point comebacks in the league, but they were 1-22 when trailing going to the fourth quarter. They get their second win, the other one against Phoenix back at the end of December. Phoenix at Chase Center. Warriors are 20-3 when they score 121 points. 32 free throws for the Warriors. 32 free throws. 8-0 when they get 30 free throws. I would surely hope so. They've gotten 30 or more free throws 3 times since Jimmy Butler has joined the team. So 3 times in 11 games, the Warriors have shot 30 or more free throws. They did it 5 times in the first 51 games overall. Steph had 40, second highest scoring game of the year for Steph. He bookends the trip again, 56 in the opener, 40 on the road at Orlando, or 40 on the road tonight in Brooklyn. Jimmy Butler matched his scoring high with the Warriors, 25. He also had 25 in the Chicago game that the Warriors were down 24 and came back to win, made all 10 of his free throws. And I mean, Jimmy Butler's presence felt. He was a game high plus 17 for the Dubs in this one. Gary Payton II, he's been taking advantage of a lot of the space that the Steph-Jimmy combination has been providing. A lot of layups for GP2. 16, 8th game in double figures for him. Season high for GP2. Draymond had 10 assists. Moses Moody, 10 points. Warriors are 14-1 when Moses Moody starts. 14-1. He's been in double figures 19 of the last 23 games, and Quentin Post had 10 points tonight. We'll keep an eye on Brandon Pajemski. Lower back soreness, left the game with over a minute to go in the first quarter. Game had just started. Pajemski out. And what do the Warriors do if they end up having to play a little bit without Pajemski? It doesn't sound like it's too serious, but definitely something to monitor here over the next 48 hours as the Warriors are back in action. So that'll do it with our Fun with Numbers segment for tonight. Let's get a couple of bonus cuts here. And I want to ask everybody flat out, we're going to play the clip, and this is from the Draymond Green with his podcast with Baron Davis, and he suggested, not the best look for Draymond, he suggested that Karl Anthony Towns missed the game on Tuesday, and look, we talked about it the other night. We wish KAT the best, and we didn't know at that point what was going on. We'll lay out what was in fact going on here after we play the clip. But on his podcast, Draymond with Baron Davis, he spoke to Karl Anthony Towns potentially missing the game because he wanted to avoid, he was ducking Jimmy Butler. So here's Draymond.
Some would say he didn't play because Jimmy was in the building. I don't know.
It's like that.
I'll tell you what, though, I saw KAT Pops yesterday at the game, and it's always love. I got mad love for the OG. His Pops is an incredible man. But, yeah, they said KAT ain't play because Jimmy came into town, and, him and Jimmy had the infamous practice in Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
And so
what?
That's the thing. I don't know.
That's a conspiracy theory says.
Yeah, and so bottom line, I'm going to ask the chat, and we'll lay it out, and we played it there. So KAT was, and Tom Thibodeau spoke to this, we mentioned it the other night, KAT was at the funeral of a close family friend, I believe a friend more specifically of his wife, I think I saw. And so, Towns is playing tonight, by the way, in LA, and he's got 12 points. So yeah, back. And I know Tom Thibodeau was kind of wondering how long he was going to potentially be out. So Towns is back tonight. So we'll just ask the chat here, Kyle, does Draymond owe Karl Anthony Towns an apology? I think the answer is yes. I think the answer is yes. San Jose chess fan, Draymond to KAT, no disrespect, but read the Steed, Dre talks too much. Like, to me, it's like, come on. Like, I think he definitely owes him an apology. Like, and I didn't see, it doesn't sound like it came up in the post game, which is kind of surprising. Although the Knicks were playing, so a lot of the Knicks reporters specifically, like, I'm kind of surprised it didn't come up in the post game, considering the fact that the Warriors were still in New York, that maybe somebody would have asked him about that. So it didn't come up post game, right? We didn't, or at least we didn't see Kyle. It didn't. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's one where I think, yeah, Draymond a little out of pocket, more than a little out of pocket. And yeah, probably a man-to-man, like, hey, sorry, man. Like, really, sorry for the loss. Like, no matter what you think of KAT, he's been through a lot. Obviously, his mom passed away during the COVID times, and like he's been through it a little bit. And so, yeah, I think that's one where I'm hoping for. Draymond's getting dragged a little bit tonight, and deservedly so. I think so. Hopefully, that's something that can get quelled here over the course of the next couple of days. All right, the other two clips we wanted to play here real quick. And we'll talk more about this on Just Dubs, I think, on Saturday. But Jake Fisher, Bleacher Report, Yahoo, addressing Jonathan Kuminga's future specifically. And Kuminga, it sounds like, could potentially come back on Saturday, although Steve Kerr really downplayed it a little bit, even in the pregame press conference. But here's what Jake Fisher said he thinks Kuminga's contract range will be.
With Kuminga, his market is going to be indicated, I believe, as of now, far more or as much as by what rival teams are going to be willing to offer him in an offer sheet compared to what Golden State is going to be willing to offer him. We know what the Warriors and Kuminga were talking about in the fall. It was right around the ballpark of the 5-year 150 number that Jalen Johnson signed in Atlanta and Jalen Suggs signed with Orlando, in that $30 to $35 million average annual value range. But Kuminga and his representation wanted to hold out, wanted to bet on themselves. You know, there's been buzz about Brooklyn being a potential suitor for him on the restricted free agency market. That was a very big thing for the Nets under Sean Marks, if you remember, before the Nets went out and made their big clean sweep in 2019 and added Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Prior to that, they were the offer sheet team.
Yeah, and so I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think the first part of it was probably the most important part, and it was because I think that's in line with the Warriors should not be looking to just back up the Brinks truck for Jonathan Kuminga unless they have to. And so we'll see. I think they should and will have the opportunity to. You know, they only have to match what another team will offer. And I think there is a potential, if the Warriors play this thing right, to maybe get Kuminga on kind of a bargain deal. Maybe not. It only takes one team. And I think, I've sort of been under the impression that it is going to be kind of 30 to 35 is about what I thought. But if nobody offers it, the Warriors don't have to offer it. And, could it end up being more like 20 to 25 per year? There's a fine line there. And so I think the Warriors, regardless of what happens, they don't need to be in a position where they're bidding against themselves. And I think, that's obviously going to be something to monitor here between now and on the end of the season and on into the summer. Here's one more quick clip from Jake Fisher on Kuminga's future. And this has been a big part of it. It's how many teams can do it. So here's more on what he was talking about there as it relates to Brooklyn.
Without Brooklyn coming into the fold and making a real offer for him, I don't really necessarily see exactly where that opportunity is going to come, especially now that a big change from the fall, the Warriors brought in Jimmy Butler and they gave him a 2-year, $120 million extension since then. It's very important that deal is lined up with Steph Curry, with Draymond Green. Golden State is locked into this kind of 2.5-year window now, the 2 years beyond this final half of this season. I'm going to be very curious to see how much long-term money the Warriors are going to be willing to invest in anyone beyond that 2-year window, being that they've kind of boxed themselves into this, by choice. I think, it kind of gave the Warriors some clear direction. This is what our path is. We are all in on a trio of 34-year-old and up all-stars. They're all signed up, locked in for the 26-27 season. So I'll be curious to see what added complications potentially come to their Jonathan Kuminga contract negotiations, being that, he just turned down 4 or 5-year looks compared to what those Jalen Johnson, Jalen Suggs deals were. So it will be interesting to see how the Jimmy Butler deal ultimately does impact Jonathan Kuminga's free agency.
I think, again, fascinating how it ultimately shakes out. I don't think the Warriors are going to be unwilling to pay another big contract. And look, Joe Lacob is Kuminga's biggest fan in the Warriors organization is Joe Lacob. So I think if Joe Lacob believes that Kuminga can be a future star, he might be the only person in the organization that believes that, but he's the guy who decides whether the money will be spent or not in terms of tax purposes and all of that. So I don't think I don't think the length or money or any of that is going to prevent the Warriors from doing a deal if they think they can keep the player and like the player. The question for me becomes more, and this is what we learn, I think, between now and the end of the year. Does it make more sense for the Warriors to keep Kuminga? And maybe that answer becomes a no-brainer based on how well he fits and what the Warriors do between now and whenever they either are eliminated or dare I say, win the title. But I think if it doesn't fit, that's where the potential for a sign-in trade and the ability to get a player back that can, if it's not him, he is really their final ticket to be able to get the player that can put them over the top, assuming that they don't have enough for the remainder of this season. All right. More on that coming up on Saturday. Kyle's clicks. Let's go a rapid fire edition of Kyle's clicks here, and then we'll get our comment of the night, and that's it. We out. Rocket New Era 84. When opposing fans start chanting MVP, you know Curry is a special player. My God, how many different buildings has that happened in? Like all of them? Like seriously, all of them at one point, I think in his career. San Jose Jazz fan 4.5 seed or bust. Yeah, all right. San Jose Jazz fans got a way with the words there. Andis Brown, Jimmy must have found a place to live in the Bay by now. Comfortable. Yeah, maybe. We'll find out probably more about that on this upcoming trip. Estimated eyes, Steph showing the league he's a true MVP. IDGAF about Shea. Like, look, Steph's been at an MVP level the last month, hands down. And again, it's all coincided with Jimmy. EB here, the Nets should change their name to Nets next season. Yeah, they really. Yeah, that's Jimmy is the big boss, conserving his power and showing only when it's absolutely needed. Yeah, he's definitely saving it up for the big moments. I think that's absolutely true. Jason Mishler, love seeing Quentin post muscle up this game and learn quickly. He did. That was big time. It was, again, he's not a soft player, but he did look a little soft against the Knicks. And to see him bounce back and just be more comfortable with like these teams are going to really try to punch me in the mouth a little bit. And he handled it much better, which bodes well moving forward. Erwin Kwong, New York. How do you like Curry now? Let's go Dubs. How about Curry with the night with a minute left? And then I don't want to say they almost lose because Brooklyn didn't have the ball with a chance to tie it or take the lead. But I mean, gosh, that's about as close as he's come to putting the night on somebody and losing the game. I put out a freaking tweet like, all right, Warriors win. It's 4 out of 5. I'm thinking, up 10 with a minute, and they end up winning by 2. Like, yeesh, I'm not putting out a premature Warriors win tweet again, even if Steph Curry and Draymond Green night. J-Tan, did they drink for Draymond's birthday? I'm going to vote yes. Yeah, I think it's a safe bet. And not just Tuesday night after the game, like maybe all day Wednesday and last night and into the morning tonight. Rebel to Sounds, the guys had too much fun at Draymond's birthday party. All right, Kyle, are we ready for let's get to it, our comment of the night.
Now, time for the Dubs OT comment of the night.
All right, what do we got? Andis bringing it home. Jimmy the new Jesus. He was on one tonight. Like it wasn't playoff Jimmy or Jimmy buckets necessarily, but he made his presence felt. Like that was as we're not losing tonight, a Jimmy Butler, I think, performances we've seen in the 11 games that he's played. And then you've got Steph going for 40 on top of it. And the Warriors showing that, look, they are never out of any game now with a couple of these comebacks. Quickly on the homestand, it's Detroit, sneaky tough game. Portland's been playing really well, although the Warriors have owned Portland the last couple of years here, even as they've been in the midst of their rebuild. Couple of days off Sacramento, that's always tough. Although if the Warriors have everybody, I think they should handle business against Sacramento, although you never know. Sometimes you got to sweat it out. The Knicks, who are up 4 on the Lakers with about 5 minutes to go in LA. And then that's when it really gets fun. It's Sacramento, but after Sacramento, the Knicks, Denver, Milwaukee. Woo! Knicks, Denver, Milwaukee. Knicks rematch, Denver, Milwaukee. And Giannis is back. That is the meat of that 7-game road trip. And then you play Toronto at the end of it before going on the I've heard a lot of home games, time to make hay for the Warriors. Like the teams that they're playing on this homestand are better than the teams that they've played in the 12 of the last 14 away. Like they are equal to or better. So it's the one thing I will caution. Don't think just because the Warriors are home, and at times they've lacked the energy at home and not played with as much purpose at home. So we'll get into that more coming up on Saturday as well. Kyle, great stuff, my man. Really appreciate it. It was Kyle Haar. We got Jacob Violante. I saw Casey Copeland as well tonight helping out. Really appreciate everybody. And we'll reconvene on Saturday morning, 10 o'clock, a 1-hour edition of Just Dubs. And then back at Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City for the Warriors and the Pistons after that one, right around 8 o'clock. And we'll be at Harmonic for each of the next 7 here over the next couple of weeks, as we'll see if the Warriors can continue to roll on. Now 7 over 500 and 6th in the Western Conference. For Kyle and Casey and everybody in the chat, some good phone calls tonight as well. We'll talk to you Saturday. Warriors get the win, 121-119. It's KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Draymond. They left Steph in the corner. That's a mistake. Curry for 3. And he gives him the night.
Emirates Cup or bust.
Oh, hell yeah.
First of all, you guys start off liking each other.
I'm super cereal.
Big fat dub.
Ain't nobody going to stop me.
I just wake up and I can shoot it no matter if I'm playing or not.
But great win.
Who are these guys?
I love you, JD. Bye, sugar.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.
Jimmy freaking Butler puts it in.
Everything's gonna be all right.